Okay, we're live. Hello, welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast. I'm Chris Garner, joined by my co-host for today, Tayte the Hour, and we're getting back to movie reviews. It seems like it's been a while since we've done one of these.
We're a channel that does movie reviews?
I know, right? It's been like reactions and then random other shows. But yeah, it's good to be back on a movie review. August kind of slowed down a lot for movies, but September looks like it's picking back up, and we are kicking September off with Sausage Party, the Seth Rogen written. Actually, it was quite a lot of writers on this one, I think. The Conrad, Vernon, Greg Tiernan adult comedy animated film. This one, I'm trying to remember when a trailer came out for this one. I think it was earlier on in the year. And personally, for me, I was really hesitant by it. I mean, the concept looked brilliant, really inventive. The animation, while not top-notch, had its own quality to it and had its own style to it. The thing that was kind of putting me off was the fact that it was one of these Seth Rogen comedy movies, because I'm not a big Seth Rogen fan. Nothing against the guy. I think he was great in Steve Jobs. As the voice of Mantis in the Kung Fu Panda films, he was really good, but it's just never really been my kind of humor. So I was expecting the humor from those live action movies that he does to translate into this one, and it's still not be able to have that impact with me. But Tayte, we were talking a bit before we started this recording. You said that you actually do like a lot of the Seth Rogen comedies. So what was some of your thoughts before going into this one?
I do like Seth Rogen's style of humor. It's a stoner comedy, let's be honest. Most of his humor is aimed at that kind of group. I mean, especially with Pineapple Express. I liked him in Superbad. I liked him in Steve Jobs. He's just a great actor overall. He's very versatile. He can do the serious performances just like in Steve Jobs, and he can also crack a laugh with everyone else. And I know that This Is the End wasn't given the best reviews, but I quite enjoyed him in that. I thought it was quite funny in that. And once again, I quite enjoyed this film purely because this film, and this isn't really a spoiler, but with Grimsby, which was a film earlier on this year, which kind of had a very similar aim to go and like insult different cultures, but also try and remain funny and like get across humor. Grimsby did it in a horrible, non-tasteful, stupid way, whilst this one did it in almost like a way which, even if you feel offended, you'd still laugh. Yeah. So it's like, as far as the two comedies, because they are quite similarly packed together within this year's branch of comedies, definitely Sausage Party is better, purely because it actually does it properly instead of just being insulting and stupid.
Yeah, I mean, there are still jokes in this film that are very much played for shock value, but they are done. Yeah. And I'm not a big fan of jokes that are just made purely for shock value unless they have a spin to them, but I think that this one did. That's not to say every joke hit, they absolutely didn't, but I did find myself chuckling and laughing quite a lot at this movie. The turnout for this film was actually pretty good as well. I wasn't sure how it was going to be, in the fact that a lot of people were mistaking it for a kids movie based on the posters and it being animated. I think this is actually the first R-rated animated film that's ever come out. Don't quote me on that, but I think it is.
I don't think it is. Wait, I think it is. R-rated. I'm searching up R-rated. Wait a sec. It won't let me type in R. search results. R-rated cartoon movies.
I swear to God, it's the first one. I thought I read that somewhere. Like 100% all animated.
No.
No?
There is more than one.
Oh, okay.
I'm just bringing up the list now.
You
got Akira. Okay, you got South Park.
That's
being the main one. And then you've got a lot of anime films. So no, it is not the first. Oh, and Anomalisa from last year.
Oh, sorry, that's where I read it. It is the first CGI animated film. That's it. And also we had that case, I think it was back in like June or July or something like that, with that that theater in California that accidentally screened a trailer of this before Finding Dory. And I'm sure, not so much at my cinema, but I'm sure everywhere else they're like cracking down on making sure that kids don't get into this with like the tickets and things like that, which is actually kind of hilarious. But yeah, so if you've got the trusty IMDb up, do you want to just kind of go over the incredibly informative plot synopsis for this movie?
It's gonna blow your mind. A sausage strives to discover the truth about his existence.
Mic drop. Boom.
I don't really want to drop my mic because it's very expensive, but
it is. We've got to treat these blue snowball mics with great pride. But yeah, so I think with this movie, I mean, I haven't looked into the whole backstory of this movie and how it came about and everything like that. But from what I've heard around is that Seth Rogen's been trying to get this movie off the ground for absolutely years. I think he said like 7 or 8 years, but no studio pick it up because of how...
It started off as a joke. It started off as people would ask him, what movie were you working on? And he would turn around and say Sausage Party just because he thought it would be the funniest thing to say. He then took that because a couple of friends went, oh, what's Sausage Party? And then he actually kind of basically made up the idea on the spot. And then he tried to pitch it, and then it's been in almost hiatus, and now it's finally made. Yeah,
and I mean, the movie itself, when you go and see it, it's kind of... It is poking fun at the classic Disney and Pixar movies, even down to the fact that they got Alan Menken to do the soundtrack for this movie, who's like the king of Disney movie soundtracks. He did like Aladdin, Pocahontas, Hunchback of Notre Dame, all movies like that. And it was kind of like, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but it starts off with a musical number, which is fantastic. But yeah, and in terms of the animation as well, I mean, this was done on a budget of 19 million, it says on Wikipedia. So far, it's made 97.1, which is pretty fantastic for... Well, it's been out a while, hasn't it? In the US, I think it's been out for about...
It's been out on the US, but it's literally just come out in UK.
Yeah. But there was some controversy, I was just reading here, about the work conditions for the animators at Nitrogen Studios. Apparently, they were all forced to work massive amounts of overtime, and they weren't getting paid for it, and they were told that if they didn't, they'd get blacklisted and uncredited in the movie. I was literally just reading that now, so I don't know how true that is or anything, but that's a little bit shady.
I had heard about that.
Yeah.
Unsure on whether it was true or not.
But anyway, let's get into the movie itself. So where do you really want to kick off with this? As always with our reviews, though, we'll start with spoiler-free, so you haven't got to worry about us giving anything away. But when we get to spoilers, we'll let you know. I think this one's actually going to be really tough to talk about spoiler-free, especially with a film, because it's very easy to just go, that joke was great, and that would be ultimately spoiling the experience of the movie. So,
and what's even worse with this one is that what you see in the trailers paints a picture of a film, and it's almost completely different when you actually watch the main film, because the way that you think whenever I watch a trailer, I think, okay, how is this film going to picture itself together with the things that we've seen from the trailer? Like, how is it going to flow through? And it was very difficult with this film because from the trailer I had a picture painted in my head. This is what I thought, but they went home. They then managed to do like a prison escape type thing, got back to the supermarket, and like that's how I thought the film would go. It didn't go like that.
No.
We'll talk about how it went in the actual spoiler section, but it's difficult to talk about this film because of that.
Yeah.
But we can talk about...
Well, I was the same.
We can talk about
based on the trailer, you know, like I watched it, and again, I don't want to give too much away, but the whole thing of where they're in the human's home, having been purchased, I thought that was going to take place much, much earlier on in the movie. But it really doesn't. There's a whole lot of stuff that happens in between, which we'll go more into with spoilers. But so yeah, what do you want to hit on first for spoiler free?
Let's go on with the characters. Let's go in with the main character, who I need to find their name again.
Frank. Frank the sausage.
Frank, yeah. Frank the Frank Wiener. Frank the sausage is, I don't know, a lad character. That's the only way that I can describe him. He is what the American term for lad we would have. He's always down for a laugh. He's supportive of his friends sometimes. He stands up for what he believes in. That's basically his character.
Yeah. But I do love how creative they got with the characters in this film. I mean, as I said originally about like the actual premise of this film, I thought was fascinating. It's kind of like that one moment from the original Toy Story with the aliens at Pizza Planet, how they think they're going to be chosen and elevate themselves to like this whole new plane of existence, the promised land. And then ultimately it doesn't quite work out that way in Toy Story with Sid, and obviously in this with humans eating food, which they don't know about. But just the actual looks of the characters, they're very simple, but I actually think they're really, really creative. Some are downright just disturbing, which we'll go into later on. But, you know, that's the kind of movie this is. You know, you're getting into that kind of thing where everything's going to be very strange and very adult and very near the mark.
Even though they made it look like it was like a kids movie on the outside and stuff like that, and then it was like they make it seem so innocent, and then it isn't so innocent, which is a trope that is done quite oftentimes with kind of heading towards that 15R rated movies. If they want it to appeal to that market, they'll make it seem like it's nice and innocent, and then they'll have it almost the film rebel against itself. But like in this film, it's so difficult to talk about because I really want to talk about like elements of the film where I laughed and elements of the film on how it flowed, which was different to the trailer, without spoiling anything.
Yeah.
All we can say really at this moment is go watch this film.
Yeah,
it's difficult to talk about without watching this film.
I mean, it's an original concept, so I always love supporting original movies. I'm a big fan of animation as it is. This was a very different kind of animated film than what I was expecting, but it is a solid comedy film. And especially around this time where, you know, we're coming to the end of summer movie season now. In fact, I don't even... Are we at the end of summer movie season? Does August count as summer?
I guess so.
September?
I assume so.
You know, things are wrapping up, so it's kind of nice to have another comedy film before we go probably more into the Oscar picks as we get into November and December. One thing I will say, though, because obviously we can't go into detail much with the actual characters themselves, but the chemistry between all the characters, even though they're all out, you could tell that all these people really get on and have a great back and forth with each other. I don't know if this was all scripted or because a lot of these comedians have that improvisation mechanic, which they use a lot in their movies. So I'm not sure if they managed to bring that into the film itself. But you could tell that they just had a lot of fun with it. For example, Kristen Wiig's character, who's the main female lead in it, who plays the bun. You know, it's nice to see her in a decent comedy film, unlike Ghostbusters, which I'm just clicked on. I've clicked on. Oh yeah, shots fired about the new. You damn right, I'm going to use shots against the new Ghostbusters. Apparently, they've changed the name of it now. Wikipedia has it down as Ghostbusters Answer the Call, initially marketed as Ghostbusters. So, I guess they went with the whole Edge of Tomorrow mechanic into Live, Die, Repeat.
I'm not going to lie, but that sounds like a straight to DVD movie.
And
that title alone,
the film itself felt like that. So I guess that's pretty apt for it. But yeah, all the characters are great. The animation on them is solid. They get really creative with some background characters as well. Again, I can't say who my favorite background characters were or the ideas of the food, but the jokes themselves, especially on a certain ingredient of sauerkraut, for example, what they do with the sauerkraut in the store. They are very much jokes that are on face value. They're very, very obvious jokes, but for some reason they just got me in the film. And it's how inventive they got with it, even like background characters. I mean, I'd love to see this movie again on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever and just like pause it here and there to just take in all the, you know, the sight gags and the background stuff, because it got really inventive that way, I thought.
If you go into a film, and I do this with Oscar season, I expect it to be a good film if it's Oscar season. And in this film, I expected it to be like an over-the-top stoner comedy. I expected it to be like, this is the end. I expected it to be along those lines. And it hit all the marks.
Yeah.
And how can you criticize something that aims to do something and does it well? Even if that isn't your taste of humor. And mind you, I thoroughly enjoyed the film. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. I know that some people, it won't be their kind of cup of tea, but all I can say is, like, it's you can't say much about it. It's a good film. In fact, one of my friends said it was a lot like the TV series Aqua Teen Hunger Force. That kind of style of humor, that very kind of same food coming alive and stuff like that. So maybe I need to give that a watch now.
And, you know, kind of going on to the recommendation, I don't know if we're jumping straight to the recommendation, if we're talking about the humor. I guess.
You still there, Chris?
You what, sorry? What?
Chris is frozen.
Yeah. Oh, are we good?
You back? You back?
I'm back. I'm back. You're back. Okay, that was weird. I was going to say, if I'm going on to my kind of recommendation, if you're a prude, if this is not your kind of humor inherently, if you are turned off by a lot of swearing, a lot of sexual jokes, a lot of offensive jokes, that, you know, there's critiques on religion in this film and everything like that. If you are easily offended by material like that, probably give this one a miss.
Yes.
However, if that is your kind of thing, if you can still laugh at it and just the absurdity of it all, then definitely check it out. I think it's worth it. For example, my mum is very much of a prude, and she's seen trailers for this movie, and she'd get going like, oh yeah, that sausage party looks good. I saw this movie. I was like, Mum, you will hate this movie. Just don't ever watch this movie. And even me, I mean, I don't know if I can on this podcast right now because, you know, the new rules with YouTube and swearing and monetization and all that. I was going to swear then. I can't. But there are moments in this movie where, I mean, I swear like a trooper in my everyday life. It's something I'm been trying to curb, but I really do. There are jokes in this movie which kind of, the punchline is a string of swear words and things like that. And like with comedy, there are laugh out loud moments in this film, absolutely, but there's just lines like that where I'm like, you could have written a cleverer punchline for that. Like, they just kind of rely on that for some jokes. And while they are funny at some point, sometimes I did think like, oh, come on, you could write something a bit different there. I don't know if you had that, or that's probably just me and comedy.
Yeah. Without using an example, sometimes they really did dumb down the humor.
Yeah.
Where they could have gone with how the rest of the film ran with. But then again, saying that would be very controversial of me, and I've got to avoid controversial topics.
Yes. We both have.
But yeah, okay. There's no other way of describing this film without you actually going to go see it. So go see it. So we can move on to spoilers. God damn it.
Yeah. So overall recommendation: the animation is very different from other films like Pixar or Disney or DreamWorks or anything like that. It definitely has its own style. I won't say it looks. It definitely looks a little bit cheaper, I think, but I think it works to the style of the film. The comedy is very fast, and although some jokes don't hit in a couple of minutes, they'll hit with another one. I went into this movie completely with an open mind. I knew that I didn't really like Seth Rogen comedy films, but I was hoping to be won over by this movie, and I absolutely was. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. It's just under an hour and a half, so it really doesn't clock in at a huge running time. I think it's the perfect length for what it needed to be. Unfortunately,
even though this film isn't like the most clever film, even though the animation isn't the best, I still think this might get nominated for the Oscar.
Do you really think so? Well, we've got a lot, haven't there? There's a lot of animated ones coming out this year.
I mean, we got Kubo coming out next week, which we think are going to win the Oscar.
Yeah. Anna, which looks...
Dory's cleaned up at the box office, even though everyone's celebrating it. In reflection, I'm still not convinced about Dory. We've also had
great animation.
Kung Fu Panda 3. Be a difficult year. Obviously. I'm pretty sure it's a difficult year, but it's a difficult year because Pixar, which was the obvious choice, isn't an obvious choice this year.
No, and that's really strange. But hopefully nothing gets snubbed at the box office like at the Oscars like Lego Movie did. I don't know. I still don't know the ins and outs as to why that got snubbed. I think it may have been because of the live action element in it.
Yeah, they said that the 10 minutes of live action in the film accounted for it to not be a completely animated film, which is ridiculous because I'm pretty sure Who Framed Roger Rabbit won the animated film. Yeah. I'm going to have to check back up on that, but I'm pretty... No, it didn't because the animated film didn't exist then.
Yeah, no.
The animated film Oscar didn't exist then.
Beauty and the Beast was the first one.
The
Oscar for animated movie. I think that was in 1991, I want to say, or 19...
I want to say without guessing Roger Rabbit's 80s.
Yeah, it was an 80s movie.
82?
I don't know when it came out in the 80s, but I know it was an 80s movie. But yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out Sausage Party. It's a nice change of pace. It's nice. It's been ages since I've seen a comedy film. I think the last proper comedy film I went to see may have been Deadpool earlier this year. I really can't think of another one we've had since then.
Comedy this year hasn't been the best.
No, absolutely not.
We've
And even like
there's been
in
so many
this year, I would say haven't been that great.
Cinema this year, I'm not gonna lie, has been pretty bad. I mean, I picked up the DVD for Captain America: Civil War earlier, and like that's probably one of the only standout films of the year so far, which doesn't bode too well really for films. But who knows? It may recover towards the end of the year.
And I mean, when we get towards the end of the year, I think we did this last year. We did. I think you were on the podcast then. We did our
top five worst.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting actually if we get September out of the way, if we do our best and worst films of the summer. I think that would be a cool one to do as well, because there's definitely a lot of contenders for worst. I'd be hard pushed to think of some.
Oh boy.
But yeah, that'll do it for our spoiler free. So we'll get on to spoilers now. Shall we just kick off with a favorite character that we couldn't talk about, or a favorite joke if you have one, and then we'll just sort of take the conversation from there and hit on as much as we can.
I'm just going to start off by saying the favorite joke from the film was the fact that bath salts was the thing that made the food visible.
Yeah.
And this comes down to the tripping element and the element that Seth Rogen was probably high whilst writing this. And just the entire concept of it. And
and ultimately what it culminates to in the finale of the movie as well. With, they've got I think they're like little toothpicks, aren't they? And they fire
with bath salts in them, yeah. But do the toothpicks have feelings? That's the question.
Yeah, I don't know if I think they were just sticks, weren't they? I think they were just inanimate objects.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
because some things in this film do have like thoughts and feelings, like douches, toilet paper, pieces of gum, but some things don't. Like we didn't see a single chicken in the movie.
No,
which is quite weird. Yeah, we saw eggs.
Yeah, and what I was going to jump on from there is my favorite joke. Well, it's hard to say my favorite joke, but the one I laughed at the most was the "I would do anything for love, but I won't do that," and we get meatloaf, a meatloaf version of meatloaf. I was laughing like hell at this. Unfortunately, no one else was. I couldn't hear anyone. I was kind of
that whole sequence where he's running through and you've got the blizzard and he's running.
Yeah, and we see Meatloaf again later on in the film in the mass orgy, which came right out of nowhere and was just so over the top.
That was the moment. Okay, that was the moment where you thought, okay, they really have gone over the top in this film, and I have to admit that was one of my favorite scenes. Not because I enjoyed watching the scene, but just because they nailed
food porn, don't you, Tate? That's the real reason.
r/food porn is a place times to see a good meal.
But it was one of those moments where you knew something was going to happen between the main two characters, because that was a thing.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
We touched tip.
It was suggested that the taco would be with the bun at some point.
Yeah,
as well.
Salma Hayek's character just majorly has the hots for Kristen Wiig's character, which was hilarious. So you knew something was going to happen. You knew there was going to be a payoff. And
the bagel and the falafel.
Yeah. Oh my God. We'll get to that in a minute. But how it started off, and having just watched Top Gun yesterday, it was a 30th anniversary screening at my local Odeon. How the love scene started off, it very much mirrored that, the kind of lighting and the music behind it and things like that. And then it just descends into this mass just orgy of debauchery and everything just happening. Everything you can possibly think of happens in this scene. And I was just kind of looking around like, what the hell is happening? Like, how it went into this, it was completely over the top. It came completely out of left field. And I thought that was going to be the end of the movie, because it was kind of the quote unquote climax of the film. But then it still went on for a little bit. And we have this whole element where they become self-aware and realize they're cartoon characters in a movie and go through this Stargate portal to turn into their real life incarnations like Seth Rogen and Edward Norton. I don't know whether I like that ending, but I was just caught up in the ridiculousness of it all that I just kind of went with it ultimately at the end.
Okay, you have moments where you just think, okay, that's what the film was kind of building up to. I'm pretty sure that that's probably how he had it at the very, very, very start. He was like, I want this film to end with a food orgy. How do we get to that moment? and probably the entire script was based around just that moment.
Yeah.
But it worked. It really did work. And the whole element of fighting back against the humans, I can understand that. The whole element of the various different ways that they killed the humans, which was very interesting. This film flowed better than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Once again, if I reiterate, I thought it was going to be they get taken home, they're all really happy, and then they have to do like an escape from the fridge or the house because they're not chosen that time round. And then like they get back to the supermarket, tell everyone else, and that's when they fight back. But no, it followed a different path, shall we say.
Yeah, and the whole part where they're fighting back against the humans at the end was just so entertaining to watch, how they were using all these food items and joining together and all the creative things they could do. That's the biggest word I can think of this movie, other than just offensive and ridiculous. Creative. It's creative as hell. It really, really is. And it's funny, we were talking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit earlier, but Seth Rogen's expressed interest in doing a sequel. And he says that's one of the reasons they chose to give it that ending where it can mix into the live action, because he'd like to do a kind of, you know, not parody, but homage to the Who Framed Roger Rabbit style and have their live action incarnations of the characters with the animated ones, which might be pretty cool. It'd be very different to this, but that'd be nice to have two movies if a sequel ever does come about, because it may very well not. I suppose it depends how much this movie makes.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit was just an all-time great film.
Yeah, I mean that's forever set the standard of live action mixed with animation for me. It's absolutely seamless, and the tricks they used on set to make that happen. I'm
sorry. Don't you mean Scooby Doo? Especially Scooby Doo 2, Monster Unleashed.
You know what? Those movies are a guilty pleasure for me. Okay, we won't talk about that at this time, but I find them entertaining enough.
It was scrappy all along.
Oh, okay, that bit was crap. And Rowan Atkinson. Oh boy. Is there anything else I could talk about this movie? Oh, another one of my favorite jokes. It's very difficult to talk. It's just these are all the jokes, and I don't want to spoil too much of it, because when you get there, you know, just watch it all for yourself. There's a glob of chewing gum character in this movie in a wheelchair who's like a Stephen Hawking type character who's the scientist. And there's a moment where they do a homage to Terminator, where I think it's the main store clerk guy has a gun and shoots it, and it kind of does like the whole T-1000 thing where it like phases back together. The Terminator drum kicks in. I love movie references, especially to references of movies that I love. Terminator 2 is one of my favorite movies ever made, so that was great. And I mentioned earlier in spoiler free, but the musical number at the start, that completely set the tone for the rest of the film. And when that was when that was playing out, I didn't realize it was Alan Menken at the start, but then when I looked at the credits, I was like, oh my god, that makes sense, because it is very much like a Disney song.
Is the song called "Nothing's Going to Fucking Go Wrong"?
Yeah,
lines.
Yeah, it's something like that, and just the lines in it and everything like that. It just completely set the tone for the rest of the movie. And I eased back into my cinema chair. I was like, oh, okay, I think I might be in good hands with this one, because I really wasn't sure what to make of this movie at the start. But where you've got the bottle of sauerkraut that's like Hitler that wants to exterminate the juice. And the juice looks so confused as well. It's on the shelf like, what have we done? and then
and no, it's later on in the movie where they go, I mean, what the hell's going on? There was a Hitler reference back there in the previous song. So much has changed. I like films that are meta.
Yeah, and also you've got the commentary on it with I can't remember who does the voice of I don't even know what the food is. It looks like kind of like a pita bread kind of thing, like
Lavash.
Lavash, that's it. And you've got Edward Norton's bagel character who's doing a Woody Allen impression. I'm a big fan of Woody Allen movies, and that wasn't spoiled in the trailer either, so that was a complete surprise for me. And I didn't know it was Edward Norton either until the credits, and I was like, oh my god, really? This guy...
What, you mean you didn't realize it was Captain America?
I didn't realize it was No, god, we need to get that on a shirt at some point, don't we? That's like the ultimate meme on this channel where I fucked up. But no, as I said, like all the voice talents were great. I mean, they completely got lost. They were still very much noticeable, apart from Edward, because he is very good at changing his voice and his mannerisms. But it was fun, and his character and Lavash were just an allegory and just a commentary on the whole sharing of the Holy Land. And there's even that line in there where there's like, why don't you just share the aisle between you? And he's like, that's ridiculous. Like, why? So it definitely has...
Not only that, but there was, controversial-wise, there was a lot of commentary on different religions.
Yeah.
There really was. I mean, there was loads of digs at Christianity. I'm assuming that's because like it's a hugely popular religion in Western civilization, but also a lot of digs on those kind of Eastern religions. And even though those were thrown in, I still think they were done to a tasteful extent. They weren't shoved in people's faces.
It was satire. That's all it was.
It was making commentary on it instead of actually insulting with it.
Yeah. And I mean, there's elements in it where I wouldn't even say it is necessarily poking fun. It's just kind of up for debate, where you've got Kristen Wiig's character who believes that the humans are still gods. She's bought into the kind of, not propaganda, but the belief that's been instilled of them by the unperishables of the you go to the promised land once you're chosen from the store. And you've got Frank's character, Seth Rogen, who's like, well, I have proof here. You're just basing your beliefs on just that belief. You've got no proof to back it up. And she's like, I don't need it. That's just, you know, why are you poking fun at me? And how in that scene where he rips the page out of the cooking book and he's showing everyone the way he carries his argument, and he's insulting everyone, saying like, you're too dumb to understand, why aren't you believing me? And she has that moment where she says, you know, you should work on how you persuade people. I thought that was a pretty cool moment. It's a good character moment. But really, you know, this does have some good character moments, but ultimately you are there for the pure ridiculous nature of it. As you said earlier, the main antagonist of this movie is a douche, literally a douche, who speaks like in a kind of gym bro, like, yo, bro, like benching 800 pounds, man, that kind of voice.
Yeah.
There's like
who voiced that? Nick Kroll.
Yeah. There's like a really awkward rape scene in it in one part.
Yeah.
He's like sucks the juice out of a leaking carton of juice. It's just, I couldn't believe some of the things they managed to put in this movie, but it was done in a comedic way, given the subject matter. But I've pretty much said everything I can on this movie. I think a lot of great moments in it. I would like to see a sequel. If it doesn't get one, I'm not going to be too perturbed if it doesn't, because this is a good standalone movie. I don't know if I'd hold it up as like one of my favorite movies of the year. I'll have to kind of go back through the rest of the year and see what came out again, because we've seen so much this year. Some things kind of get lost to memory, but it was massively entertaining. I had a good time with it, and ultimately at the movies now, that's all you want. So that's my recommendation on Sausage Party. You want to give yours, and then we'll round it off?
If you want to not care about a film even slightly and just go in for a laugh, then this is the film for you. It's a comedy that is so far out there amongst the lines of Deadpool, where they just try and almost push the boundaries to how far they can go while still getting a laugh. And I think they've hit the boundary right now, because this any further and it would have been like they were trying too hard, but any less and it would have felt underwhelming. They really did nail the comedy on this one. Seriously, go watch this film. It's a great film from this year.
And I think the animation and the fact that it was an animated movie gave them that leeway to push the boundaries even more and get away with a lot more that you wouldn't be able to in live. Well, I mean, the concept alone, you wouldn't be able to do this in live action, but in terms of the jokes and things they could do, I think the animation definitely gave them that little bit of leeway. But yeah, that'll do it for our movie review on Sausage Party. Be sure to comment, subscribe, let us know what you thought of Sausage Party. Let us know what you think of Seth Rogen's previous movies or anything like that. Anything you like, please do drop us a comment. In terms of what's coming up on the channel, as I said at the beginning, we're definitely getting back into a lot more movie reviews now. Next week, I think I've actually got to see 3 movies. Actually, at the end of this week, I think I've got Don't Breathe, Ben-Hur, unfortunately, that's been getting some stellar reviews. And Kubo. And Kubo and Two Strings, one of our most anticipated movies of the year. I really hope it delivers, but every trailer I see for that movie looks absolutely stunning. So expect reviews for that. There'll be reactions along the way from me. There haven't really been many trailers and things for me to do one on this last week.
We still need to do High Rise and 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah, and we'll get on those at some point this week. Absolutely. It's just getting everyone's schedules in line.
Getting everything in,
kind of all over the place with schedules. We should probably stop giving dates like we'll have it done by this date. Just expect it when you see it, folks. But
we'll get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll have, at some point, we'll have another episode of Battle of the Brackets. It's the greatest sci-fi movie moments, and towards the end of the month we'll have episode 6 of Timestamp. We don't have the voting up for that just yet, but we'll get on that and we'll post that on our Twitter and Facebook. Links to those are in the description below. So yeah, that'll do it for our video today, and until the next one, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.